do not forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell to be notified when we upload next. Jack Colwell was just 34 years old when he passed away, leaving behind a legacy that touched the hearts of his fans, friends, and fellow musicians. To those who knew him, Jack was more than a singer-songwriter. He was a soul deeply connected to the world through his music. His melodies were haunting, his lyrics personal, and his stage presence unforgettable. Jack Colwell was born in Sydney, Australia, on a warm autumn day in 1990. Even as a child, there was something unique about him. He wasn't like the other kids who spent their days playing outside. Jack would sit for hours, listening to his parents' old records, humming along to the tunes. His mother, Anne, fondly remembered how Jack would tap his tiny fingers on the kitchen table, as though creating his own rhythms before he could even talk properly. By the time Jack was 5, he had his first piano, a hand-me-down from a neighbor who didn't need it anymore. It wasn't in great condition, some of the keys were chipped, and a couple didn't work at all, but Jack loved it. He would sit in front of the piano for hours, his little fingers trying to make sense of the keys. His parents didn't need to push him, music seemed to be the only thing Jack needed to keep himself entertained. As Jack grew, so did his passion for music. He was a quiet kid at school, the kind who preferred to stay on the sidelines and observe rather than join in the noisy games during lunch breaks. But when it came to music class, Jack was different. His teachers quickly noticed his talent, especially when he started writing his own songs. At 14, Jack wrote his first song, a simple tune about feeling lost in a world that moved too fast. It was raw and filled with emotion, much like the music he would go on to create in his career. His classmates didn't really understand his music. It wasn't like the pop songs everyone else was listening to at the time. Jack's songs were slower, more reflective, but they were honest. It was the beginning of his journey to finding his true voice as an artist. Jack's teenage years were tough. Like many artists, he struggled with feeling out of place. He was always a bit different, a bit quieter, and more sensitive than most. Music became his escape, a way to express everything he couldn't put into words. After high school, Jack decided to pursue music full-time. His parents, though supportive, were worried. They knew how hard it could be to make it in the music industry, but Jack was determined. He started performing at local pubs and small venues around Sydney. Sometimes there would only be a handful of people in the audience, but Jack didn't care. Every performance was a chance to share his music with the world. It wasn't long before people started to take notice. There was something special about Jack, something raw and real. His voice wasn't perfect, but it was full of emotion, and his songs spoke to people in a way that many mainstream artists didn't. Jack wasn't singing about flashy parties or meaningless relationships. He was singing about life, about heartache, and about the struggle to find yourself in a world that didn't always understand you. In his early 20s, Jack released his first album, Only When Flooded Could I Let Go. It was a deeply personal collection of songs that showcased Jack's vulnerability as an artist. Critics praised his ability to connect with listeners on an emotional level, and his fan base started to grow. Jack's music was often described as hauntingly beautiful. His voice had a way of drawing people in, making them feel like they were part of the story he was telling. He wasn't just singing for himself, he was singing for everyone who had ever felt lost, or lonely, or misunderstood. As his career progressed, Jack's music evolved. He experimented with different styles, blending classical elements with indie and folk influences. His lyrics, however, remained deeply personal. In interviews, Jack often spoke about how his music was a reflection of his own experiences. He didn't write songs because he wanted to be famous or successful, he wrote because he needed to. Despite his growing success, Jack struggled with his mental health. Behind the scenes, he was battling anxiety and depression, a fight that often felt overwhelming. In interviews, Jack would speak candidly about his struggles, hoping to break down the stigma around mental health in the music industry. "I think a lot of people think that once you're successful, all your problems go away," he said in one interview. But that's not true. Sometimes, the pressure to be okay all the time just makes it harder. Jack's honesty about his mental health resonated with many of his fans, who admired him for his openness. But those closest to him knew how much he was suffering. Jack's music became a lifeline, a way for him to process his emotions and find a sense of peace, even if it was only temporary. Jack Colwell passed away on a quiet evening in Sydney. The news of his death shook the music community and his fans worldwide. He was just 34 years old. His family released a statement, asking for privacy as they grieved the loss of their beloved son and brother. "Jack was a kind and gentle soul," the statement read. "He touched the lives of many through his music, and we ask that you remember him for the joy he brought to the world." Fans gathered outside Jack's favorite venues, leaving flowers, letters, and candles in his memory. The music industry, too, paid tribute to Jack, with fellow artists sharing stories of how his music had inspired them and how his kindness had touched their lives. Though Jack's time was short, his impact was profound. His music will continue to live on, reminding us all of the power of vulnerability and the beauty that can come from sharing your truth with the world. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to daily updates and never miss a video.